This is Ask the Mayor on our Thursday with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. If you have a question about city business, please give us a call. And good morning, Mayor, on this windy, nice fall morning, but could deal with a little bit less wind and dry conditions.
Yeah, we got dry conditions. We could use a little bit of rain, and when you think about it, we're at October 17th, and we've only had one freeze night. Yeah. So the weather's been beautiful. Now we can just get the wind to stop, and I think Monday there might have been a 35% chance of rain in the forecast. That'd be nice if that hit for us.
Seems like they're kind of tailing off on that now a little bit, adjusting it to a lesser probability. But who knows? Maybe we'll get it one of these days.
Get lucky, huh?
Yeah. We did have a question from a caller, and I think we probably have addressed this at some point in the past, but had to do with questions about Hannibal Park development. And specifically, it was playground facilities. Now, there's the new one that's on the east side, a relatively new one, east side of Hannibal. But there was an old playground on the west side, kind of close to where the new parking lot went in. And their question was, is anything to be done with that to improve it? Or I'm not sure.
I'd have to look at the plans again. I would guess as far as making improvements to it, I don't know. I really don't know. But I would say with a new one, chances are I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Yeah. I just don't know that plan. So that one's got me a little stumped.
Yeah, it does me too, because I can't even visualize it right now. I know there was some old equipment there, right. I think. But it's
I think the thing that we just have to take a look at is, again, dollars. We're putting that, hopefully, with the Saratoga, that partnership that we have, a new playground at Astro Park. And, I think it really depends on dollars, because anytime you touch an older playground, you have to update it to all the today's standards, which typically can be anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000. Yeah. And so I think at the end of the day, I'm not sure how that fits into the plan at Hannibal, but I'm glad that we have a new one.
Gone are the days of the old metal swing sets and no cushioned floor service. And, of course, the ADA capability, you have to have that as well.
We do.
So there's a lot of changes today.
There's a lot of changes today, and I know they're all for the good. We survived through our years. We're trying to figure out how. But
didn't break too many arms or whatever.
we survived. But, overall now, we're kind of aware of all the safety issues that you do have with, whether it's a playground equipment or anything like that. Yeah. So.
At Hannibal, the next big thing, isn't that the ball field development where the parking lot?
It is.
The old parking lot, I mean.
Correct. Yeah, correct. The demand for the fields are still high, and it's a nice addition that we'll have to Hannibal Park.
Sort of related, but other end of the community, the old Cedar School, Beatrice Community Preschool property. I know we talked about that a little bit as to what might be done in the future with that, and same person was asking about, is that a possibility for playground facilities there, or maybe something else that, I don't know, maybe neighborhood park type thing that as an option?
I think there's a lot of possibilities for Cedar School. Right now, I think the first thing we're going to do is see how the development of Lincoln and Paddock do, and take a look at how those developments are going before we make a decision of what we want to do with the Cedar School. I think right now you'll see it probably sit vacant for a while as we map out what our best options are. Certainly we don't want to forget about some type of playground or park, on the west side in that area. But again, right now we're going to take a pause on Cedar and figure out what the best use for it is after we see how the other two developments are going.
Okay. Follow-up to something there was a question on, and we were wondering about the last week, I think it was, is there actually a turn lane at 19th and Lincoln? I think you have the answer to that now.
I do. The turn lane at 19th and Lincoln, I think, was one of those quasi-turn lanes that people just developed.
Did it anyway, yeah.
But we took a look at that intersection. I know Jason has his guys out there painting some design there. There is not a turn lane. I think you'll see the road marking that which lane you're the only lane to be in with arrows, whether it goes straight, left, or right. And I think the other thing we did, again, precautionary, because things have gone really well at the four-way stop. There hasn't been any accidents, and I think for the most part things are moving pretty smoothly. However, we did put little flags on the top of each of the stop signs, also just to draw attention to that stop sign.
Mm-hmm. And no accidents that I can remember.
No.
I don't know if there's been any close calls, but people are dealing with it pretty easily.
I think so. I think it's working pretty smoothly. Mm-hmm. I've been through there several times. Now, granted, when I've through there hasn't been a lot of traffic, but the times I've been through it, it's rolled through pretty smoothly.
Okay. Another follow-up to the recycling discussion we had last week about the closure of the recycling drop-off site near the city auditorium. Understand you have a new thing to announce on that.
I do. We hate to shut down recycling. It is a thing that I think is important to a number of our constituents. As we know, we've had the problem with some pig items, remnants in there, which
animal waste,
which isn't very good for our employees. So, as a temporary solution, we have moved the recycling site out to where the compost and the grass clippings are kept. There's a little house out there. We have somebody who is out there during the day to monitor people coming and going. And so at that little house, the people that would like to have recycling, they will need to stop and talk to the gentleman that's there, and he will direct them to where the recycling containers are. He will not help unload. It's just mainly to check your load and to make sure that we get you in the right place to where the containers are so you can offload your cardboard or whatever you have. Mm-hmm. It is, again, as intended. It is set up for residential use only. Hours of operation will be Monday through Saturday from 8 to 7 p.m. starting today through October. And then as we move into November, it'll be Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., which coincides with where you want to take your grass out there and dump it there. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to have to make a decision, where do we go with recycling after that? Because as you get to December, the compost site will usually shut down for the winter. And so we'll try to figure out, is it something we can continue to do based on how much it's used there? Is there a spot out there that works? Is there a way that we can get some lighting or cameras in the old spot? So it'll give us some time to develop a little better plan and yet still provide the opportunity for recycling.
Also, another recycling operation, of course, you have the curbside $8.50 a month service that people can sign up for.
Yes.
And there was some discussion at the Board of Public Works meeting earlier this week regarding a step that Jason Moore, the superintendent of Mars, has taken now that you can get a bigger container for the recyclables. Seems like a pretty good idea from a standpoint of you maybe have a little bit more control of how often you have to put it out. I mean, you have a little bit more capacity there.
You do. You get a little more capacity, and I think it works out really, really well. A couple advantages that we have with the bigger containers, the side loader truck, we can actually use one of those, and we have one dedicated to recycling, and so they can buzz through and pick it up. The containers will hold, like I said, 96 gallons worth, and people can decide when they want to put it out. They could have once a month or every week recycling, depending on probably the size of the household and how much you recycle. I think it's a really nice opportunity to provide citywide recycling at really a pretty reasonable rate.
And that's mixed materials, too. You can all put it in
that
the
is
container.
Correct.
You don't have to separate anything.
Only we don't want is glass and animal.
Yeah.
Leftovers.
I think they prefer, too, if you have cardboard like some of these smaller boxes, if you can flatten them, too.
Yes.
Maybe sort of save a little bit of space or make it easier to handle. That always helps out.
That does. Yes, it does.
Are there very many people, do you know, on that $8.50 a month? I've never checked. I don't know if it's a well-used or if it's just kind of out there as an option for people to use.
From driving through my neighborhood, I see a lot of my neighbors use it, yes. But I think it's used pretty well. Mm-hmm. It's embarrassing because Jason Moore sent me a report that, or Tobias did, that showed, kind of an update of how Marza did and how many customers they have, and they had that information on there, and I don't have that report in front of me. But I'll find that out for you.
A lot of numbers to remember.
There was. I mean, Mars is doing really well. They've been very successful. And it's been a very strong asset to the city because we'll be able to continue to offer garbage service at really a very reasonable rate from what you can compare to other cities our size.
I don't know the answer to this one, but are those containers on recycling, would they be available to like rural area customers too, or other villages? Because I know that Mars does serve some outer-lying areas, but I'm not sure on that.
And part of that I think would depend. And when I say it depends, I think it would depend. If you just have one or two, it probably would not be cost efficient for us to run a truck out there and back. Okay. So I just off the top of my head, I would say that is something we might be able to look at, but for probably right now, it's probably for in town.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
Bob Morgan.
Good question.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer, so I thought I'd ask. Bob Morgan, Mayor of Beatrice, on Ask the Mayor. We'll have more in just a moment. You're listening to Ask the Mayor on KWBE with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan today. It's kind of obviously a topic that is of great concern to rural areas based on a couple of weekends ago, some very dangerous fires that were pushed across Gage County by high winds, of course, the dry conditions and low humidities and kind of unseasonably mild weather at times. I know it is a rural concern, but in a way, too, city concern, because you have cities have zoning jurisdictions around outside their community. They have areas that are just as susceptible to such fires. I just wanted to get your take on what you've observed as to, the efforts of local departments and, of course, the city department providing housing for the equipment in fighting these fires. It's been quite a task.
Well, I think it's, of course, the fire station we have now has been phenomenal to not only outfit us, but also the Beatrice Rural Fire. When you live here and you see the big smoke that kind of goes around, that those fires were pretty visible for a number of miles. I think the thing that I think is hats off to all the rural fire departments that fought them. And not only that, I think, again, it just shows the stamina of a good Nebraska rural communities where, the fires were contained by some very talented rural volunteer firefighters, but they were also contained by a number of farmers that just hooked up their plows and went out and disked up those breaks to kind of help contain the fire. So I think that was a good example of how community and rural fire got together. For us, I think our role is always to be on standby. Probably one of the things that people may or may not know when the fire's not in the city of Beatrice and it's a rural fire, we certainly will assist as we can, but it's really the rural fire department's chief to determine whether they need assistance from us. And so we will come upon their request, but we do need to wait for that request. As far as the city goes, I think we take a look at all those areas, whether it's a park, things that kind of scare you is if we don't know, and we sometimes find that we have abandoned houses, and there's a lot of things that dry out with this type of weather. But our fire department is ready if something would flare up.
And I know you do lease out some land for crop development in fringe areas of the city too, which could be susceptible to a fire close to town. So
all right.
The other thing too, it's kind of a neat situation where you have city department personnel who can drive the rural trucks to the scene, allowing the rural fire chief or the departments to summon their personnel who can respond directly to the scene, don't have to go pick up a truck or whatever and then bring it out there. So that sort of helps with time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I would imagine with the way that fire was spreading, time was very important.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty brutal weekend.
It was, it really was. The wind was whipping pretty hard, and I think, I think there's another couple of things that always complicate things. Is I'm sure you had a number of people that wanted to go out and see what was going on as well, and the more you can stay out of the people's way, the better the way that we can help that as well.
Harvest is winding down, but producers have to get that work done too. So you can't really call a halt to something like that. You just have to be kind of careful and kind of watch.
You do.
that nothing gets
here.
started. We'll hope for a good weekend and lower winds and maybe
Yes.
a good rain shower Friday night
Well,
into Saturday. That would help out.
certainly help a lot, wouldn't it?
It would. Some other things on our list today. There's a closure of City Hall tomorrow, and that's because of some maintenance work. I think you're connecting a generator.
A generator, yep. Another power source to City Hall. And so while they do that, that building will be uninhabited while the generator's hooked up. And so the city offices for Friday will be closed on October 18th all day and open for business on Monday.
I think you can still use the drop-off box, can't you?
Correct. The drop box
yeah.
you'll be able to use. But as far as anybody to assist, there will not be anybody in the building for that day.
Just one of those things where if you don't have power on, can't really operate for a while.
No, that's true. I mean, that happens it depends on whatever the project is. I know I remember when we had certain parts of our buildings out at the college closed because when you put big HVAC units on, there's no longer is it acceptable for people to be in the building in case something would go wrong. And so, I think from a safety standpoint and from an electrical standpoint, we're going to close.
Yeah. Just a reminder, kind of along with this closure of offices, you have an event coming up October 30th, and that is it's kind of a second open house of the Safe Streets for All initiative that you're undertaking. This one's going to be at Beatrice High School Commons area, 4 to 6 p.m. I guess for people, don't be reluctant to show up. Input's always good.
Input is always good. We're coming down to finalizing the Safe Streets for All project, so what you'll see there is kind of the shell of what we're going to have in that report with suggestions, and I think it's important that you kind of come and say, hey, I like this, I don't like this, and we can see how close to the mark this report is hit.
You never know when somebody comes up with a good idea
Yeah.
that maybe alters something or something nobody else has thought of that might have some application in the future.
That is very, very true. It amazes me, too, with the Safe Streets of All. First of all, thanks to the committee that was on there in JEO. It just amazes me, though, all the statistics that they have.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the statistics is probably not a surprise when you look at Safe Streets of All. I think on Highway 77 from, I guess they call it Restaurant Row, that's where a lot of the majority of our accidents happen. And so I think you'll see some suggestions on Highway 77 how to possibly make that a little safer.
Anytime you have that many access points into businesses, you risk rear-end collisions if people aren't really watching what they're doing. So that is kind of an area that you kind of watch out for.
Well, and then at noon, when you're on your lunch break, you've got an hour.
Yep.
And so getting in and out is important, and it sometimes leads to a little haste, which sometimes leads to accidents.
Yeah. We'll be back to wrap up Ask the Mayor in just a moment with Mayor Bob Morgan here today on KWBE. Back to conclude Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. A couple of things to touch on before we go our way today. Lincoln Street update. Things going well out there?
They are. Actually, I think we're hoping that they're going to be done by the end of the month. And we really, when I came on here, we talked about getting it done before the snow flies in December.
I think even spring at one point.
And one time we thought it was going to be phased and take three, take the whole year. But now we're, as things are progressing, we went from December to Thanksgiving to maybe the end of Halloween. So things are progressing very well. It looks really good. I think that constructors have done an amazing job. One of the things that we did do is we did add a little bit of to the work for constructors as that road that they're working on now comes up to where we'll continue that 25th Street. We will pour that to the middle of that intersection. And the reason we're going to do that is then when we finish the 27th to 25th or whatever the address, the streets are for that, you'll have a way to get in and out of those neighborhoods because you won't have to block off the whole intersection. Yeah. So they kind of approached us and said, hey, this makes some sense. I know that James reviewed it, and I think JEO reviewed it and got the specs out. So we're going to do a little bit more work. And we had that other concrete plan anyway and approved for 2025. So at the end of the day, somebody might say, well, what about the cost? Well, the cost is they're already there. They're going to be able to extend that, and it's just less than what the next bid has to do.
Doesn't that also kind of match up with the next section that you do at some point?
Yes.
Too, doing that way?
Yes,
So,
that's why we're going to move forward and do that extra work. It also means that it's going to match up better because we have points of where it's going to match up. Won't be a bump.
Well, now that the city has skills at putting water mains under rivers, you get a second chance to do it again, I guess, if this all goes forward. And that's if you go down to the West Court Street Bridge and you look over the railing to the north, you see that big pipe attached to the bridge there. Eventually, that is to be bored under the Big Blue if things go well.
Yes, we need to get that bored under the Big Blue. We need to get it off the bridge. I know there's talk from the Nebraska Department of Transportation that bridge is going to get replaced somewhere in the next 5 years. It's kind of, what year is that? We really don't know. Those plans keep, just like any 1 in 6 plan that we have, things keep moving. So we're going to get it off the bridge. We're going to get it bored and across and out of sight. I think that helps basically a lot of ways. I mean, it's going to continue to make sure we got a good water connection, number one, and number two, when you have a pipe exposed on the side of a bridge, anything could happen to that, and then that would cause major issues. And three, when they redo the bridge, the Nebraska Department of Transportation may or may not let us attach it again.
Yeah.
And so this is a good solution at a good time.
In the dead of the winter, when it gets real frozen like that too, does that cause problems with the main like that? I don't know.
You got me.
Don't know how insulated they are or whatever, but
I don't know how
like
insulated.
you said, it's on the north side of the bridge, and you see the wind whistling down that channel. Getting pretty frozen there.
Well, at least it's pretty big, so it'd take a lot to freeze it.
Yeah.
And number two, I guess that water's probably always moving.
Yeah.
So hopefully those two things. Well, I guess the bottom line is it didn't freeze for the vortex, so we were pretty good there.
Yeah, if it didn't do it then, it probably won't. Yeah, that was a bad time, I'll tell you what. I almost hate to mention this because we just need rain, but you're not too far off from the snow removal season. And I know Jason and his street department crews, they usually jump on that, get ready, fit trucks, get the equipment ready to go where you can put it on and you're ready to fly.
Yes, I'm sure they've probably got everything pretty well ready. We're taking advantage of this nice weather and doing some crack sealing where we can. And so, but that will happen, and they will be ready as always, and they'll do a great job as they always have. And speaking of Jason, I thought I would just quickly put in that I got a text from him a few minutes ago.
I forgot to bring that up during the break after
the recycling does extend to our 2-mile radius, which is the zoning limits of the city.
I see.
And then after that, it doesn't. So wanted to, since you said Jason, it sparked my mind and said he did text and wanted to get that in there that, yes, if you're within the 2-mile radius, you do have access to those 96-gallon containers for recycling and pickup.
I'll take the blame. I was going to ask you that right after the break, and I forgot about it. So I was looking down the list here, trying to get some things done.
Hey, we got it covered.
Yeah, I know. That's good. Maybe just one brief thing. I saw on I think it was the city Facebook page, that you're in the process of using a community forestry grant to replace trees on city property. I think the goal is kind of like for every one you lose, you plant two. And it's, trees are a great thing for communities just from an aesthetic standpoint, but also energy, cooling areas for people. And, you lose some trees once in a while to storms and wind and whatever.
Well, that and, trees are no different than us. We have a life expectancy. And sometimes those trees have gotten to their point of life expectancy and they just really need to be taken down, or they get diseased, and before we get those into other trees, they need to be taken down. And through the forestry grant, our goal is to replace 2 trees for every one that we remove, and granted, if you remove a tree that's been there for 50 or 60 years, that's really, really big, you're going to miss that. But at the end of the day, you're putting a tree back in place that, in 50 years, somebody's going to be able to appreciate it.
Yeah. Bob, we'll see you at City Council Monday night, and go Lady Orange.
Absolutely.